Episode 181 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, benvenuti, ladies and gentlemen, signore e signoriti. Signora, how do you say it in Italian? Sì, signore.
Signore.
Okay, well, you can probably tell, ladies and gentlemen, by the fact that I'm having to improvise with my gaveling instruments, having to use a cheese board and an axe, that it does. This means that I am on my summer holidays. I don't have the usual implements to hand. And you will also, what else will you also notice? You'll notice that I have an old friend of the show, an old guest of the show back with us today, because today is an episode for interpreters, translators with Italian in their combination. So the Interpretation Station is delighted to welcome back to the show old friend Sara Molinari. Hello, Sara.
Hello, Roland. How are you? Thank you very much for inviting me again.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's been 2 years. The last time Sara was on the show, I think, was 2 years ago. 2 summers ago was the last time, I think.
Yeah.
Sara has been very busy in the meantime, which is why we've not been able to do any more Italian shows. But so anyway, she is back. Before I give the floor to her, as I said, me and Sara have actually, we did back in the day, I think we did about 10 episodes for interpreters, you know, looking at texts, mainly from Italian into English, but also from English into Italian. At the end of the show, at the end of the episode, you'll see a box appear that will give you, you can click on it and it'll take you to the playlist, the English to Italian playlist. So if you click there, that will take you to those episodes, the other 10 or 11 episodes that we've done. So you've got a good, as I say, all our episodes tend to be between 40 minutes and an hour. So for you would-be Italian interpreters with Italian in your combination, I strongly advise you, after you watch this episode, to go and click there and go through that whole playlist. It's mainly statements that I've taken from the UN, but I think also we've got a couple of other things thrown in there. There's episodes that cover COVID. What else were there? Nuclear weapons as well. You remember what else there was, Sara?
Yes, the machinery of disarmament. And
UNCTAD, I think there was stuff on trade and developments. I think we covered quite a broad spectrum of issues in the other episodes. You've got that, as I say, in that playlist. So well, before we start today's statement that we have, Sara, do you want to just tell us then what you've been up to? So Sara has, I think, some important announcements to make. So if you're a translator, interpreter working with Italian, this might very well be of interest to you. So Ms. Molinari, I give you the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, starting from September, I would like to provide the services for training translators and interpreters through courses held by teachers who will teach translations about, for example, audiovisual, the audiovisual field, or also, for example, copywriting, and a full range of topics. So we will cover a full range of topics. So I hope that soon I will able to start with project, hopefully in September. We are working, the work is still in progress. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
Where can viewers find out more information? I know you're on LinkedIn, so I know Sara's on LinkedIn. That's where I found out about what you're doing.
I post on LinkedIn. Exactly, I post on LinkedIn, but also I will post the link of my website. It's both in Italian and in English. And so you will see that posted also on the web page.
And just tell us what's the website?
Later on.
What's the name of the website?
The website, it's Servizi Linguistici di Molinari Sara. And also for the part about the English version, I will write the link in the LinkedIn because
I'll
it's
post it up
a
on the
bit long,
screen.
but
Yeah, I'll post it up on the
yeah.
screen. Don't worry.
I prefer to write it down in the link because otherwise we get confusion.
And will you be teaching any of the courses yourself, or are you going to be? Are you sort of the middleman, the middle person, as they like to say?
Probably I will be the middle person. We will see.
Okay, so there you go. So any budding translators, interpreters, you might have some benefit. You'll hopefully get some benefit if you go and visit Sara. Definitely look her up on LinkedIn. Look her up, Sara Molinari, and then visit her website as well. Okay, well, without any further ado, let's move on to what we're going to be our statement for today. So it's a statement I picked out. So it's taken from the Conference on Disarmament, the CD, as we call it in English. So that's one of the main sort of bodies that works in Geneva. So I'm often assigned to meetings of the Conference on Disarmament. We'll be looking at a statement that was delivered by Pakistan, by their Minister of Foreign Affairs, actually. Delivered at the high-level meeting of the Conference on Disarmament. Now, just before we start, what might be of interest to you guys who have Spanish in your combination, who speak Spanish, who understand Spanish, I'm thinking that most of you Italians probably can understand it pretty well anyway. So some episodes ago, to be exact, it was episode number... Okay, episode 171. My colleague in the Spanish booth, the head of the Spanish booth in Geneva, Mr. Cristobal Osuna, he basically gave a masterclass, that's the name of the episode actually, on all issues to do with nuclear disarmament, non-proliferation, and arms control. So this was back in maybe May, I think we did it, before the Spanish booth exam in the UN. And so it's about 2 hours, him giving a talk. It's some great vocabulary. I really recommend you listen to it, as if you've got Spanish in your combination. And then later in episode 175, we did an episode together, me and him, looking at a statement delivered in English, funnily enough, also by Pakistan, looking how he would render that into Spanish. If that's really helpful if you are, well, if you have aspirations perhaps of working at the UN, that's going to give you a lot of really good vocab that's going to be used here as well, that comes up in this. So that's just a recommendation before we start. Well, with that intro, Sara, shall we get going then? So you'll see here up on the screen, Sara has shared the screen with us. On the left-hand side is the original statement delivered by the Pakistan Foreign Minister, Hina Rabbani Khan. And then on the right, we have Sara's version going into Italian. So Sara will be guiding us through it. And then, as usual, I'll be chipping in, making comments, remarks, ideas, filling in some of the elements of general knowledge, the sort of in-house knowledge that I possess that might be of help in rendering this statement the best possible way. So, Sara, over to you.
Yeah, so we will start. Madam President, Signora Presidentessa, okay, I congratulate Ethiopia on assuming the presidency of this important conference. Quindi mi congratulo con l'Etiopia per la presidenza di questa importante conferenza. Okay, poi I also commend Egypt for its skillful leadership and professionalism during the preceding presidency. Esprimo un elogio all'abilità e alla professionalità mostrate dall'Egitto durante la sua precedente presidenza.
Okay, just a couple of things I'll just throw in. I will just add, I'll just chip in with a couple of things. Yeah. Just a couple of things to add. So yeah, the Conference on Disarmament.
Just a quick... Yeah.
The Conference on Disarmament. So again, in English, you'll sometimes hear it called a CD. Okay, so just be aware of that if you're going into another language. It has a president. It has rotating presidents. It has, I think, it has every year there are 6 presidents. They call it the P6, and they rotate. So here, Ethiopia was assuming the presidency. Mi congratulo. So these expressions, like in Italian, I mean, congratulo is primo elogio. Always, when interpreting, you always want to have a sort of handful of these different alternatives, different solutions. What else could you say? In, I mean, congratulate and commend pretty much come down to the same thing. Like in English, I'll also say we compliment, for example, we applaud. Anything else in Italian? Any other sort of any other little variations in Italian?
Mi congratulo pure, or you can also say congratulazioni all'Etiopia.
You could just say, yeah, in English, you
A.
could just, yeah,
So
right.
congratulations, you can just say that to cut. It's a
Exactly.
shortcut.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
congratulazioni all'Etiopia, or un elogio all'Etiopia. You can just play with words.
Yep.
If you can use congratulare, elogiare, un plauso a, it's kind of
Right.
applaud, something like that. Un plauso a. Yeah.
Exactly. You wanted to have a
That
few
kind
things that
of
you can play
words,
around with.
or
Exactly. Because sometimes
similar.
when you're in a real hurry, those quick ones, you could, if you're like, and well done to Egypt, well done to Ethiopia on that. You could even say that. Well, I mean, in English, I'm saying. Okay.
Exactly.
And then, when interpreting, there's always remember things like when this is skillful leadership and professionalism. When you have when they give you two adjectives or two nouns and you're in trouble, always think you can maybe drop one. Interpretation, remember, is not an exact science like translation sort of is pretty exact science.
No.
Interpretation, you've got a bit of room for maneuver. You can clip things, when needed. I'll let you go on.
Okay, so again, Signora Presidentessa, the global security order today is in a state of disarray. La sicurezza globale oggi si trova in uno stato di disorganizzazione.
Did you know that word? Go on, yeah.
Yeah, you could also say, for example, la sicurezza globale oggi è disorganizzata. If you want to, it is disorganized, so is in disarray. Okay,
that's a nice expression in English. It's quite a high register, and you need to actually be able to recognize it. That in disarray, you'll hear it a lot. They'll talk about football teams. Oh, AS Roma, they're in disarray. They're in complete disarray. The defense is complete disarray. Or about an army, maybe in a battlefield, the army's just in complete disarray. Desorganizata. Yeah. Okay, so it's important you recognize that. Mm-hmm.
We have an expression, allo sbaraglio. It means that it seems like even not prepared for something. Okay, allo sbaraglio. It's completely disorganized.
Okay, that would be nice. Yeah, right. Yeah. Is that a sort of step up? Is that like a slightly higher register, slightly more figurative?
No, it's figurative. Yeah, but it's not a high register. But in case you just don't, you can think of other expressions or phrases, that's fine. The meaning could be that. So the right one. So
okay.
And then the normative glue that gave it a sense of stability is unraveling. Oh, ok, il collante normativo che dava un senso di stabilità si sta disgregando. Ok, when interpreting, you can't find, I think, these words probably. So you have to change something when interpreting, I think. So you could also say, for example, il senso normativo si sta perdendo.
That's nice. Yeah.
The sense of the norms, okay, is kind of missing. Is getting lost, So il collante normativo, it's really too complicated when interpreting. So I had time because I translated, and it's not the same as interpreting. So but yeah.
So that's
And
not
then,
sta disgregando, se sta perdendo, you say, yeah?
yes, it's losing pieces.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
unraveling
falling
again.
apart.
It's an important one to be able to recognize coming from
Yeah.
English. You'll hear our plans are unraveling. We had all these great plans, now they're unraveling. Oh,
Mhm.
so it's important at least you recognize it and can put it into a good. You don't have to have this. It's quite figurative, like unraveling. It's quite nice, you know. It's important when you go into Italian that you at least have a solution that gets across that message in one word, like disgregando, perdiendo.
Yes.
Yeah.
It means that it's no longer a unit, you know, it's falling apart.
Yeah.
So, and then, okay, another thing that I wanted to point out, for example, it's ok, la stabilità strategica sta venendo meno a causa delle crescenti asimmetrie in varie regioni. Okay, and then new geopolitical alignments seek to perpetuate strategic advantages of the few. Nuovi allineamenti geopolitici cercano di portare avanti i vantaggi strategici solo di pochi. Ok, perpetuate. There is a word in Italian that is right the same, perpetuare. You can also say that.
Okay.
Again, I have more time here for the translation, but perpetuare is also a word in Italian. So in case you can't think of another word, that's fine. Perpetuare
Is
vantaggi
that a word that's typically used, though, perpetuare?
per portare avanti.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to have an
It's more
alternative, so you could, yeah, it's good to have what either or anyway, I guess, huh? It's good to
Sorry,
have more than one solution.
Yes, of course. Yeah, but yeah, in case there is a similar solution in Italian, perpetuare, exactly. And then what can we say?
And just important of the few. I mean, so just to get to understand that if you're maybe not an English native speaker, so it's like the few who are at the top of the tree as opposed to the many.
Yeah.
So it's not just of a few, the street of a few, but the few are like the chosen ones.
Di pochi, di una cerchia ristretta, di un gruppo ristretto,
Yeah.
a
So
limited group,
Deepoki gets across that same
restricted group.
message, right?
Yeah.
Okay, of the few.
Exactly,
Okay.
di pochi, it is for very few people, privileged, possibly.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Carry on.
And yeah, and then, okay, for example, here, political and commercial considerations override long-standing non-proliferation rules.
By the way, I forgot to mention. So, by the way, the links to this text will be in the description box. Okay, so if you want to practice it, I will also try and find the original audio so that I should have said this before, but never mind. I'll try and find the original audio so that you can go and listen to it. You can try and interpret it into Italian, and then you can go through. What I would suggest you do is actually record yourself first, listen to it, interpret it, record yourself, and then watch the episode with me and Sara as we break it down what was said. So you'll find, as I say, the links in the description box. Go ahead, Sara.
Yeah. Okay. In Italian, we don't have this one. Long-standing non-proliferation rules. I mean, you have to split this because we don't have a kind of non-proliferazione. Okay, no, we have non-proliferazione, but we don't have a long-standing. You have to change it. Okay, so esiste da tempo. You have to use it's another construction of the sentence.
I know in Spanish they say something like de largo dato. I don't mean they don't.
Largo
You have something like that in it. Oh, what's that in Italian? Sorry.
Che esistono da tempo, quindi sì, che esistono, you have to put che.
Okay.
Okay, so
you don't
you
have something like
skill.
that like they have in Spanish, like de largo dato.
Di lunga data, di lunga data.
Would that work?
Di, regole, di lunga data, you have to put something che esistono
Okay.
da tempo. You have to put that che esistono,
Yeah.
che ci sono, che, yeah, you have to put something in the middle. It doesn't sound quite right, I think, in my opinion.
Okay.
But anyway, the sense again, you get the sense, I mean, but if you want to be a bit more accurate, I think it's better.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Okay. Where are we? Le spese militari.
le spese militari stanno raggiungendo nuove vette, new heights, nuove altezze, nuove vette, sì.
Okay,
And
that's quite, again,
that-
there's quite a few figurative expressions in this that
yeah.
are, again, slightly higher than your average register. I often say that the best English these days is the most figurative, the most eloquent English is often spoken by the Indians and the Pakistanis. So there's quite a few nice little figurative. So reaching new heights. I mean, the important thing is when you're interpreting into Italian is don't feel that you have to get the exact same word for word rendering. Just just to get across the idea of that they're all keep on increasing. A simpler way of saying that in English would be military expenditures keep on rising, which isn't as nice as sounding as reaching new heights, but it does the same, but it gets across the same message. And so here, yeah, what were the other alternatives? What other alternative ways could you say that
we can
in
say
Italian?
stanno aumentando,
Okay,
stanno, sì, stanno aumentando. I think it's the quickest solution in Italian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Raggiungendo nuove vette, is that a bit hard? Is that
It's-
like slightly more again
It's the
figurative?
high register, as you said, figurative also in Italian, because vette is a part of the mountain, the top part of the
Oh,
mountain.
is that right? Okay.
Yes, la vetta del monte, of the
Right.
mountains, yeah.
Okay.
So it's figurative in Italian too. So, but of course, again, it's interpreting. So, le spese militari stanno aumentando molto, if you want to stress it.
Okay.
So, and put emphasis on this. So, stanno aumentando comunque, however,
Okay.
yeah.
Go
And
on.
arms races are evident across multiple domains. La corsa agli armamenti è evidente in vari domini. Efforts are in full swing to develop and deploy new technologies and weapon systems.
Here we go in full swing. This is us again.
Non si stanno risparmiando sforzi per sviluppare e implementare nuove tecnologie e sistemi di armamento. Militarizing the outer and cyberspaces, militarizzando spazi esterni e spazi informatici.
Okay. I was going to say, do you have in Italian, like I know in French, like in full swing, there's an expression like en plein essor. There's actually a sort of the direct sort of solution. Do you have something like that in Italian? Stanno in plena.
Sono in pieno sviluppo.
Okay.
They are in full development.
Okay, you could say, yeah, you could say it that way, yeah.
Sono in pieno sviluppo. Or
could you say something like also, okay, if you can't, stan accelerando?
Stanno accelerando.
Could you say that?
No, efforts are, sì, gli sforzi stanno, I'm thinking, okay. Probably gli sforzi sono massimi per, are the highest for example, so,
and for deploy, do you have another word for deploy? I know you've gone here for implementare nuove tecnologie. Like when do you have another word for like, the deploying troops or deploying weapons?
Implementare or deploy new technologies and weapon system.
That's obviously
I think it's Or you can also say lavorare su nuove tecnologie and weapons to work on, but I don't know if it's quite the same meaning.
That's obviously okay, I'm just looking here. Dislocare. What about dislocare?
Dislocare. Ah, ok, sorry, yeah. Dislocare. Dislocare, mettere in atto.
I'm just looking
Mettere
at
in
word
atto.
reference here. It's giving me schierare, spiegare.
Sì, schierare, sì, anche. Yeah. There could be several meanings, several
With,
words, sorry.
with
So
these military statements, and that's a kind of expression, that's a kind of word that's going to get used a lot. So it's good to have two or three alternatives for that.
yeah, mettere in campo, schierare, usare, yeah.
Okay.
And okay, there is clear resistance by leading technology holders. Okay, this was interesting.
Yes, I know you've highlighted it, so yes.
Yeah, c'è un'evidente resistenza da parte delle maggiori aziende tecnologiche. Leading, it means, of course, predominanti, maggiori, ok? So, delle maggiori aziende tecnologiche a limitare o regolare nuovi letali strumenti di guerra moderni.
Now, one thing I was going to ask you here was the word hacienda. Is that a company?
Aziende, yes, company.
Right. Well, you see, I think when they talk about leading technology holders, to me as a native English speaker, holders doesn't necessarily have to refer to companies. I think it can cover more. It can cover governments, right? And I don't think governments would fall under the meaning of hacienda, right? So I think it's actually
No.
holders is more general than simply.
Okay.
I think hacienda is getting too specific. So what's perhaps a better, more
Detentori.
Oh, yes,
Detentori.
detentor. Okay, that's what they like French. Okay.
Yeah, like
Detentor.
French.
Go with that. Go with that. Yep, yep.
So okay, I'll change it right away.
Oh, there
Detentori.
you go.
Detentori.
Detentor. I think that's a bit. Oh, an
Detentori di
interpretation. You do want to play safe. If in doubt, and I think the Pakistan foreign minister is probably referring to governments, companies, whoever it may be. So yeah.
Yeah, it could be anyone who
Exactly. Exactly.
acknowledges you. It means okay. And let's see. Il segretario generale delle Nazioni Unite ha giustamente avvisato che le possibilità di una guerra nucleare stanno tornando ad essere una possibilità concreta. Ok. Back within the realm of possibilities. Stanno
Again. Okay.
tornando
Yeah.
stanno rientrando nelle possibilità.
Okay. Again, that's quite a high rate. Okay, she's quoting the Secretary General using his exact words.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, if you say that, if you get that in if you're going into English,
yeah.
You do that if you're then going to quote, you would say the Secretary General has rightly warned that the prospects for nuclear war are, quote, back within the realm of possibility, unquote. That's the sort of formulaic way of doing that in English.
Okay.
That's if you want to get across these are the exact words that the person used. Okay.
And okay, I also highlighted the word drivers.
Okay, so just one thing. Also, just UN Secretary General. Remember, in English, you're often going to hear in English we do like to use acronyms. Okay, so you have to be aware that the speaker may use acronyms. So often, the Secretary General may be called the SG is often used. So just be aware of that.
SG, yeah. Okay, and
so sorry, the drivers you were saying.
Yeah, the drivers. Okay, this unique body cannot remain immune to these drivers and development. So tendenze sviluppi. I came up with solution. Because drivers, it's something that drives you, right? So I thought of tendency. So
yeah, I think that's good. I like that. I like that. Yeah. I think I like that a lot. Now, one thing I would question.
I had no synonyms actually for that. I had no synonyms for this.
But I like that, Tinder. I think that's good. I think that's good. One thing though, I was gonna say, questo ente esclusivo is how you've rendered unique body. Now you see, to me in English, when I hear exclusive, it means that only a certain few can join something. That if you're not a certain level, you can't. You're not going to be let in. To me, unique body is the idea that there's no other body like it. So it's a slightly different meaning.
Yeah.
It's not really concerned with when you say an exclusive body, it means like, oof, only the very top people can join it. Unique to me means that there's nothing like it. And in Italian,
Questo ente unico, but yeah, questo ente unico, unico, I don't really like it because it seems
the only, is that like unico?
the
The only.
only, right? So it's quite of a challenge actually.
Right. I see what you mean. I see
Getting
what you
the
mean.
right meaning, okay? Questo ente singolare.
Okay.
Probably could be better.
All right.
But it's not so easy when you
I
are
get what you're saying. I get
interpreting.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Questo ente singolare.
I mean, I'm sure exclusive. If you're interpreting it, no one's ever going to stop you for saying that. But yeah, it's fine. It's just, now we have the opportunity to just have a think about these things. It's good to put these things on the table. So okay, that's interesting. Ente singolare. I'm thinking because I'm in French, and probably the same thing applies. I'm trying to think because unique. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Singolare.
Okay. Well, yeah. Anyway, it was really difficult. This part was quite difficult. Let's see.
I like what you did. Yeah. Okay. You're restare immune. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Madam President.
You've skipped this. Yeah. Tuttavia, yeah.
Yet it must. No, hold on. This conference is thus obliged to operate in this environment. So, la presente conferenza è quindi obbligata a operare in tale contesto. This conference, la presente, it's more.
Yeah.
Okay, is thus obliged to operate in this environment. So, yeah, è obbligato a operare in tale contesto.
Intorno, can you say although I think
ambiente, yeah.
Ambiente, okay, as an alternative. But I mean, yeah, right, yeah. I was going to say when interpreting, I think the quindies can be dropped to save you a little bit of time.
Of course.
Yeah.
So è obbligato a operare in questo ambiente, in questo contesto, whatever. Yet it must find ways to address the existing and emerging risks to security and stability at the international and regional levels. Tuttavia deve trovare modi per affrontare rischi esistenti ed emergenti per la sicurezza e la stabilità a livello internazionale e regionale. I rischi esistenti e emergenti che ci sono e che esistono e che stanno emergendo, probably, but it's too long for interpreting, I think. So deve trovare modi per affrontare i rischi per la sicurezza e la stabilità, bla bla bla. I rischi
what other ways could you say? What other ways could you say other than maybe to address risks? Because in English you say to confront risks, to tackle risks, whatever, to overcome. What are affrontare? Are there other verbs that you can give?
Affrontare rischi, or you can also say evitare rischi,
okay.
but it's not the same thing because evitare means avoid. So gestire maybe, manage.
Okay.
Maybe gestire i rischi, I would say. Affrontare, gestire. Yeah, I would say one of these two. Esistenti emergenti, sì, which is quite similar as the English version. So, okay, Madam President.
One thing I always say also when if the speaker's speaking very fast and then they sort of stop with the Madam President or whatever is feel free
you
to just
go on.
leave that out and just take a breath, just, you know, and get ready for the next paragraph that's going to come, you know. So don't feel that you always have to follow it. Say, ladies and gentlemen, Madam President, you know, all that.
No. Otherwise, it's really, you have to breathe.
Exactly.
Okay. Many of these troubling trends are on display in the South Asia region, exerting severe strains on strategic stability. Molte di queste tendenze preoccupanti sono evidenti nella regione del Sud Asia, dove la stabilità strategica è soggetta a forti tensioni. Troubling trends, preoccupanti.
That's nice.
Tendenze preoccupanti, troubling that causes troubles. I mean, of course, I think. So, yeah, tendenze preoccupanti. I have no synonyms actually
No,
here.
I think that sounds good. No, I think that's pretty much.
The largest country in the region continues to be a beneficiary of nuclear exceptionalism. Il più grande paese della regione continua a beneficiare dell'eccezionalismo nucleare in violation of established non-proliferation norms and principles, in violazione delle norme e dei principi stabiliti di non proliferazione.
No, he's referring there to India, by the way. So if you don't know the backstory about the conference and disarmament, they still meet. The conference and disarmament still meets, but they're unable to even adopt an agenda, and that's been the case for like 30 years or something. And it's due to a big sort of quarrel between India and Pakistan over the issue of, I believe, fissile materials. If you watch that, a masterclass I talked to you about, episode 171, my colleague Cristobal goes into more details on to why, but that, yeah, so it's India and Pakistan are really at loggerheads over this issue. So the conference actually does very little work, substantive work. That's the problem. They can't get around to any substantive work. Go ahead. What you were saying, Sara.
I see. Yeah, and we were here. This country also remains a net recipient. Questo paese rimane anche un beneficiario netto of general supplies of advanced conventional and non-conventional weapons, technologies and platforms. Un beneficiario netto di forniture generiche di sofisticate armi convenzionali e non, tecnologie e piattaforme.
Could you say, so you've put sofisticate, could you say avanzati?
Avanzate, sì, you can say avanzate. Convenzionali e non, I cut out non-conventional.
Okay.
I simply said e non, without repeating conventional.
Okay, I mean, if that makes sense in Italian, then that's fine, yeah.
Exactly.
Again, if you were doing this, you might want to drop, not because he says conventional, non-conventional weapons, technologies, and platforms. I can imagine just be saying, you know, just dropping, let's say, platforms, just saying armi, technology, if you know, if the speaker was going too fast.
Yeah, exactly. And then make no mistake, non cadete in errore, non fate errori.
Okay. Or if the expression like that doesn't come to you, you know, you can sort of paraphrase it. How would you say in Italian? Let me be clear. How would you say that in Italian?
Siamo chiari, facciamo
you could
chiarezza.
see you could say that as, I mean, it basically means the same thing. If you can't think of the exact way in the moment, I'd say make no mistake.
Of course. And then these supplies have accentuated military asymmetries and therefore directly impact our national security. So queste forniture hanno accentuato le asimmetrie militari e quindi hanno un impatto diretto sulla nostra sicurezza nazionale. It's pretty much as the English.
Yeah.
You can stick to that. They are straining the security environment, heightening risks to peace and stability in the region, reinforcing a sense of impunity in the recipient state, and freezing pathways to conflict resolution through peaceful means. So, stanno mettendo sotto pressione la sicurezza ambientale, aumentando i rischi per la pace e la stabilità nella regione, rafforzando un senso di impunità nello Stato beneficiario e bloccando le vie alla risoluzione del conflitto attraverso soluzioni pacifiche.
Freezing the pathways. I mean, again, perhaps you could find just one word maybe you could say, can you say impidiendo?
Impedendo, sì.
Impedendo resoluzione del conflitto, for example, you know.
Impedendo la risoluzione, stanno bloccando, fermando.
Okay, right. Some nice little alternatives there. Yeah, freezing pathways is a bit, again, figurative.
We also have in Italian, there is this word frizzare, which means freezing, okay? Just blocking. But it's rather colloquial. It's not
Okay.
direct.
Okay.
In this case, I wouldn't say this.
Okay.
So, and then, okay, even as we adhere to and call for restraint and responsibility, we cannot ignore threats to our security. Seppur sosteniamo e sollecitiamo moderazione e senso di responsabilità, non possiamo ignorare tali minacce per la nostra sicurezza.
One thing I would say here is if I was a non-English speaker, a non-English native, and I heard an English sentence beginning, even as I'd feel slightly afraid because it's like for me, like in Spanish, when you hear like mientras que, or in French, like bien que, you never quite know where those sentences are going to go. And one way to play safe is to split this up into like two smaller sentences, which would basically mean dropping, you'd say, you drop even as, and I would say, we adhere to and call for restraint and responsibility, full stop. But we cannot ignore threats to our security. So how would you do that in Italian?
In Italian, it's the same.
We would just drop seppur,
sosteniamo, right? You drop, yes, exactly. Sosteniamo, sollecitiamo, ma allo stesso tempo non possiamo, etc. Yeah, you can just, as you said, you drop the first even as, etc. and split the sentence in two parts.
Yeah, that way.
Is much easier to handle.
That's the thing, because those sentences always come in two parts. And if you go with it even, if you go with it, maybe you get the first bit right, but then you lose the second half. You kind of lose the whole sentence. Whereas if you split it up, this kind of construction, to two sentences, and you get the first bit right, at least you know that you've sort of delivered that package and the speaker, the listener will have understood it. Okay, maybe you get the second half wrong, but it's better to get half. It's better to get 50% than zero, right? So.
Exactly. You play safe, as you said. Yeah, really. Okay, we are now.
Meanwhile,
a third of humanity that lives in South Asia deserves investments in sustainable peace and development. Abbiamo una chiara visione. No, sorry. Intanto un terzo dell'umanità che vive in Sud Asia necessita di investimenti in una pace e sviluppo sostenibili. Ha bisogno, necessita.
Okay. Well, it says deserves. Do you have like merece?
Merita. Merita, sì. You can also say merita. And then we have a clear vision and a policy for peaceful neighborhood on the basis of universally agreed principles, sovereign equality and undiminished security for all states. Abbiamo una chiara visione e una politica di vicinato pacifica basata su principi universalmente riconosciuti. Uguaglianza sovrana immutata, sicurezza per tutti gli stati. So, this was, okay, peaceful neighborhood. Okay, politica di vicinato, policy for
Often you'll hear in English, good neighborliness. You'll hear that sometimes in English. Good neighborliness.
Yeah,
good neighborly relations.
And then, okay.
A lot of these expressions. Go on.
No threat or use of force and pacific settlement of disputes. Nessuna minaccia, utilizzo di forza e soluzione pacifica delle controversie.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff taken directly from the UN Charter. Okay, because it's interesting to use pacific settlement of disputes. You see, no one says that in English anymore, but that's what's written in the Charter. most speakers will talk about peaceful dispute settlement. So this, but he's actually the lady rather. She's taken this directly. That's the chapter in the charter's Pacific dispute settlement. And these again, university agreed principles. You said riconosciuti. Would you have accordati?
Accordati universalmente, concessi universalmente.
But things like sovereign equality, undiminished security.
Yeah,
Again, these are
immutata
important expressions.
sicurezza. Yeah, immutata sicurezza, undiminished security, immutata.
Okay. Again, so you're going to hear that. Yeah.
And then settlement of disputes, soluzione delle controversie.
Yes, right.
We will pursue the path of peace, development, and strategic stability in South Asia and beyond. I can assure you of that. Perseguiremo la strada della pace, dello sviluppo e della stabilità strategica in Sud Asia ed oltre. Lo posso assicurare. So, lo garantisco, you can also say.
Okay. Rest assured. How do you say rest assured in Italian?
Potete starne certi, statene certi. Statene certi.
Again, in English, you'll hear that rest assured, of something that will do this and that.
Oppure you can also say sicuramente.
Okay.
Assolutamente. Ok. Pakistan attaches importance to the Conference on Disarmament. In fact, we deem it an indispensable part of the global security architecture and the machinery of disarmament. Il Pakistan attribuisce molta importanza alla conferenza sul disarmo, infatti la riteniamo una parte indispensabile dell'architettura della sicurezza globale e la macchina del disarmo.
Yep. If you're going here, maybe you just drop the on disarmament attaches high importance to the conference, alla Conferenza, because we're in the conference. We all know we're talking about the conference. So again, this is, you have to sometimes think intuitively and realize, just drop sul disarmo, for example, if you wanted to save time. And then I was going to say, do you have so the machinery of disarmament is a set phrase you see in English, and usually in the other languages, the macchinaria. Do you have what macchinaria?
Macchinario.
Okay, so yeah, that would.
We have that word macchinario, but it's not used in this case. It is macchina del disarmo.
Okay, you call it.
La
Okay,
macchina, il processo, la macchina, all things involved, la macchina.
Okay.
And the decades-long impasse in this conference is a shared concern. So, il pluridecennale impasse, we can keep it French.
Yeah. They often talk about in English the deadlock. They'll often talk about, this is something they talk about all the time, the deadlock, the stalemate, the impasse. What are other alternatives in Italian? Because that's a word that again comes up a lot generally.
Pluridecennale, stagnation.
Okay.
Impasse, that's the quickest. If you are interpreting, that's the quickest, because we can use words borrowed from French.
Yes.
Yeah, è una preoccupazione condivisa in questa conferenza. Shared concern, preoccupazione. And this body, in terms of its rules and methods of work, remains sound. Il presente organismo, in termini di proprie regole e metodi di lavoro, resta in forza. So remains sound. Resta in forza, I would say.
It's a better way, because in force, is that not like a legal, it means that it's still
resta valido.
Valid. Okay. Yeah. Sound is not necessarily just means effective. In this case, remains sound. It remains solid. I would guess solid. I don't know.
Resta solido. Resta solido, intatto.
For example, but that might be slightly, because in forza gives the idea that you're talking in legal terms.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, for deadlock, you say punto morto?
Oh, punto morto.
For
Sì,
impasse, yeah.
punto morto, esatto, anche. You can say punto morto. Sì. After all, this conference has produced several landmark treaties with the same rules and methods. Del resto, questa conferenza ha prodotto diversi trattati fondamentali tramite le sue regole e i suoi metodi. Okay.
Fondamentale. That's an interesting, a landmark. Okay, that's something you'll need to recognize. That's an adjective that you'll come across. Landmark treaty. Often when you're talking in court, in like legal terminology, a landmark ruling, a landmark decision is other examples of where you might run into that word landmark.
Yes, exactly. Trattati fondamentali or trattati di riferimento, probably also.
Okay.
They are of reference. So, yeah. Therefore, we must ask ourselves why this body is unable to deliver on its own mandate. Quindi dobbiamo chiederci perché il presente organismo non sia in grado di adempiere al suo mandato. To deliver on its mandate.
That's very trendy way of. I deliver on things a lot. I find myself saying this a lot, to deliver on the mandate, deliver. I mean, it's like implement. Basically, it's a fancy way of saying. Could you say here implementare al suo mandato?
Sì, non sei in grado sì, di aderire al suo mandato, di rispettare il suo mandato.
Mm-hmm.
Adempiere, it's much better, but
Okay, that's yeah.
And then to us the reasons are rather obvious. Secondo noi le ragioni sono piuttosto ovvie. Okay, like in English, this body has been prevented for decades to commence negotiations on nuclear disarmament. A tale organismo per decenni è stato impedito di avviare negoziati sul disarmo nucleare. You have to change a little bit in Italian because you can say questo organismo è stato and then bloccato, you can say, è stato bloccato per decenni nelle negoziazioni. If you want to keep the same construction. Because sometimes you have, otherwise, if you want to deliver a sentence like this one, you have to wait for the whole sentence. So the risk is that you lose the whole meaning.
Yeah.
So, okay, for decades, this conference has not been allowed to negotiate a convention codifying negative security assurances. Per decenni a tale conferenza non è stato permesso di negoziare una convenzione che codifica le garanzie negative di sicurezza.
This is an important negative security assurances. This comes up a lot when you talk about this nuclear stuff, nuclear disarmament. It's the assurances given, basically, I think, from the states that have nuclear weapons to states that don't have nuclear weapons. So nuclear weapon states give to non-nuclear weapon states that they basically, the assurances that they won't drop a nuclear bomb on them. And you'll hear them referred to sometimes as NSAs. You know, if you're in a meeting of the CD, for example, you'll hear that come up. So that's an important idea to be, I think, comfortable with negative security assurances on this subject matter.
The ability of this conference to start negotiations on these agenda items remains contingent on the policy priorities of its members. La capacità di tale conferenza di avviare negoziazioni sui punti dell'ordine del giorno resta subordinata alle priorità delle politiche dei suoi membri.
That sounds nice. Contingent on, that's a very high register. Like depend. I mean, the more straightforward way of saying that in English would be like it depends on, remains conditional on. So subordinate. That's the sounds good to me. I don't know if there's another alternative, maybe in Italian.
Yeah, sì, yeah, there is. Resta dipendente da, rimane dipendente da yeah, subordinato dipendente, you can say, alle priorità politiche, their threat perceptions and their core national security concerns, le loro percezioni delle minacce, le loro principali preoccupazioni di sicurezza nazionale. It is perhaps disingenuous when some members of the conference choose to insist on pursuing self-serving and cost-free proposals, such as banning the future production of fissile materials.
Okay, some interesting words here. Go on.
Forse è ipocrita da parte di alcuni membri della conferenza optare per insistere sul fatto di perseguire proposte accentratrici e a costo zero, come quella di proibire la produzione futura di materiale fissile. Ok.
I think you've done, yeah, that sounds quite nice. And for disingenuous, I mean, that's a, you know, a high register word, which you do come across. I think, yeah, ipocrita is a pretty nice
I'm
way
so
of
sorry.
rendering it. Yeah.
Yeah, but in Italian it's very heavy.
Yeah.
You know, optare per insistere sul fatto che it's redundant.
Yeah.
But maybe you can just cut a little bit. Forse ipocrita da parte di alcuni membri della conferenza, cercare di insistere.
Yeah, to choose to insist. I think you can put exactly like, I think you could just drop the choose to.
Cercare di insistere nel perseguire, oppure cercare di insistere in proposte. You just cut.
I would just get rid of the optare or the cercare. I don't think you need. I mean, I don't think you really you don't really need it to make to make a good sentence. I think when interpreting.
Exactly. You can just drop it.
I mean, in English, you could just say it's perhaps disingenuous when some members of the conference insist on pursuing. I mean, that sounds just as good in English as choosing to insist.
Exactly. Exactly.
Often those cercare, often, and actually, you know what, like generally in interpreting, when you have like a sentence with cercare to do something, often you can just like they seek to do something, they try to. Often, if you're struggling, if you're behind, you can just sort of drop that and move straight to the main verb, whatever it is. Like here, insisting.
Yeah, you just drop it and you say insistono, whatever. Yeah, and the same happens here, of course. And yeah, insistono. Membri della conferenza, sì. Insistono sul fatto di perseguire CITRO.
So the whole thing, so this is to do with the FMCT, the Fissile Material Cut-Off Treaty. And I think the whole problem is that the Pakistan wants all fissile material to be basically destroyed, okay? And the cut and I think, whereas India wants a treaty with a specific date that all, you know, only new stuff needs to be destroyed. But if you've got stuff that was before a certain date, you can keep that. Yeah. I think that is the stumbling block, the bone of contention on that treaty. Okay, go on. We're not averse to
conversations on fissile materials. Non siamo contrari al dialogo sui materiali fissili.
That's the sort of thing, if it's easy, you can just say, we support conversation. Appoggiamo?
Appoggiamo.
Appoggiamo. It means this, yeah, maybe it's easier to say it just that than saying we are not. We're not against. So, you know, again, interpreting, you have that option.
Like a play.
Yeah.
You just play with words. Yeah. So, what we ask.
For interpretation, if you're translating, though, you need to keep.
Of course.
Much closer to the original, right?
Yeah. What we ask is to discuss this subject in all its dimensions. Quello che chiediamo è di discutere questo argomento in tutti i suoi aspetti. Ciò che chiediamo, yeah. We have therefore proposed a fissile material treaty that addresses this subject comprehensively, effectively and verifiably. Quindi abbiamo proposto un trattato sul materiale fissile che tratta questo soggetto in modo esaustivo, efficace e verificabile.
Yep.
You can stick here to the English version.
The English, again, with those list of adjectives, you know, if you're struggling, you can always drop one of those, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe effectively, comprehensively, see, verifiably has got a slight It's a bit different. I would maybe drop effectively, for example.
Exactly, yes. You just say in modo esaustivo, in modo efficace, or one of the two, but convey the meaning.
Yeah.
Anyway, we call for crafting a new mandate for such treaty. Invitiamo a creare un nuovo mandato per tale trattato.
I like crafting things, okay, in English, okay, because it's a very short word, okay. So if I hear something like, you know, to develop or sviluppare, I might just say to craft. It's one syllable. So it just basically means to draw up, to develop.
We have costruire.
Okay, costruire. Could you just say sviluppare un nuovo mandato?
Ideare. Ideare, maybe. Yeah. And then it should stipulate explicitly in its scope fissile material stock. Dovrà stabilire in modo esplicito il suo ambito di stoccaggio di materiale fissile. Stoccaggio, yeah.
Stocks, yeah. Stockpiles. Again, you'll hear that a lot in English.
Yeah. And it should apply equally to all states without discrimination. Questo dovrà valere ugualmente per tutti gli stati senza discriminazione alcuna, without any discrimination. But yeah. And then, okay, let me share Pakistan's perspective on how the CD can and should discharge its responsibilities. Mi permetta di condividere la prospettiva del Pakistan su come, and here I left the abbreviation. CD può e dovrebbe adempiere alle proprie responsabilità. In Italian, it's right the same as in English.
Adempiere, okay, so yeah, discharge, that's very high register. You'll hear that a lot, that sort of use, yeah, the UN, to discharge a mandate, discharge its responsibilities. So yeah, have a good solution to discharge. So adempiere, you say, is like
adempiere, yeah, rispettare le proprie responsabilità, sì. And first, this conference must contribute to and promote security and at international and regional levels with a realistic lens towards the drivers and developments I have outlined. Ok, in primo luogo, tale conferenza deve contribuire a promuovere la sicurezza a livello internazionale e regionale con obiettivi realistici verso o sulla base delle tendenze e gli sviluppi che ho delineato. Second, in secondo luogo, the conference must play its role in creating conditions that are responsive to the cardinal principle of inalienable right to equal security by all states. La conferenza deve giocare un ruolo nella creazione di condizioni che devono rispondere al principio cardine dell'inalienabile pari diritto alla sicurezza per tutti gli stati. Yeah.
I think, could you just drop che devono, could you just say che rispondono?
Che rispondono.
Again, that might just save you a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's too heavy in Italian. Che rispondono al principio di. In terzo luogo, third, the conference must adhere to the cardinal principles of arms control. La conferenza deve aderire ai principi cardine di controllo agli armamenti. Disarmament measures should be pursued in such an equitable and balanced manner as to ensure that no individual state or group obtains advantages over others at any stage. Quindi misure di disarmo dovranno essere prese in modo equo e bilanciato, in modo da garantire che nessun singolo stato o gruppo sia avvantaggiato rispetto agli altri in qualunque fase, in qualsiasi fase, ok? And then fourth, in quarto luogo, the CD members must demonstrate adherence to international rule of law by refraining from grant of special exemptions and by fulfilling their long-standing disarmament obligations. In quarto luogo, i membri della CD again here, CD.
Again, maybe you could just drop della CD. I might just say I membri, because we know the member. She keeps talking about members of the CD. So yeah.
Devono dimostrare di aderire allo Stato di diritto internazionale, astenendosi dal concedere speciali deroghe e adempiendo i loro consolidati obblighi di disarmo. So must demonstrate adherence, devono mostrare aderenza, but it's ok. Fourth, in quarto, riprendo, sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
Fourth, in quarto luogo, i membri della CD devono dimostrare, must demonstrate to adhere, ok. I change in Italian here. In English it is demonstrate adherence. In Italian I put devono dimostrare di, because you really can't say mostrare aderenza. It seems like you're speaking about
it's a bit clunky in English. Demonstrate adherence. I mean, I would probably just drop the demonstrate myself when going into another language.
Yeah.
Maybe I would just aderono, devono aderire.
Devono aderire. Exactly.
So I think that demonstrate could probably be dropped if needs be.
Exactly. Devono aderire allo Stato di diritto internazionale, astenendosi dal concedere, refraining from, astenendosi da, from grant, dal concedere speciali deroghe e adempiendo ai consolidati obblighi di disarmo. So long standing, I put consolidati.
She uses this a lot. Decades long standing. Yeah. So that's an adjective.
It means that it is consolidated. So
it's
long standing.
Okay.
So that's another word.
Yeah, another alternative. Yeah.
Yes. All states, especially those with the largest military arsenals, have a special responsibility to demonstrate political will to enable this conference to deliver on its mandate. Tutti gli stati, e specialmente quelli con più grandi arsenali militari, hanno responsabilità speciale di dimostrare volontà politica per consentire alla conferenza di adempiere al suo mandato. So here, will to enable. So volontà per consentire, per permettere alla conferenza di to enable, to allow. So in Italian, it would work. And finally, it is our collective interest to nurture and preserve this conference. It must be able to overcome its decades-long impasse by patient and constructive engagement. Infine, il nostro interesse collettivo è quello di supportare e preservare questa conferenza. Deve essere in grado di superare la sua impasse, il suo momento di stallo, as we said before.
Momento di stallo, ok.
Il suo stallo, simply, ok. E il suo installo pluridecennale attraverso un impegno costruttivo e costante.
Could you say, just thinking for nurture, you say cultivare? Do you have that word in Italian?
Well, we have nurture, sì, nutrire, alimentare.
Oh, that's okay. Alimentare, like
alimentare,
in Spanish. Okay.
Yeah. Alimentare, because it is specifically of the food sector. Alimentare.
Yeah. Like taking care of her like a baby and giving her
exactly.
bottle of milky, some
like
milk.
Feeding.
Exactly. My little baby.
Exactly. Attraverso, by patient and constructive engagement, attraverso un impegno costruttivo e costante. Patient, I wrote costante, but I don't know, paziente. I don't know if it works here. I didn't like it very much.
Okay.
But yeah.
You don't have paziente? You can't have paziente? Doesn't sound right in Italian, or?
Un impegno perseverante, like I think. But yeah, I really didn't know how to manage this patient in Italian, actually. That's why I came out with costante, because patient means that you need to be patient to obtain something, and this could be a constant process,
Yeah.
a continuous process. So, and then, okay, Pakistan remains committed to the goal of nuclear weapons-free world that is achieved in a universal, verifiable and non-discriminatory manner. Il Pakistan mantiene il suo impegno per l'obiettivo di un mondo libero da armi nucleari che sarà raggiunto in modo universale, verificabile e non discriminatorio.
That's set language. That's really sort of what's the expression? Boilerplate language, like in the CD. Universal, verifiable, non-discriminatory.
Yeah, you can stick to the English version just to.
When you say remains committed to, I'm thinking in Spanish they'd say what siguen siendo
comprometidos.
comprometido. But in Italian you don't have it like that.
Mantiene il suo impegno o continua ad impegnarsi per.
Okay, they talk about impegno, right.
Continua, yeah, committed, a commitment, un impegno.
Okay.
And I wish to reiterate Pakistan's proposal for a renewed paradigm of arms control away from arms races and towards restraint at the global and regional levels. So, ribadisco, if you can just cut desidero. You can
exactly. Again, these words that I want to, I try to, I seek to. They're sort of they're expendable. They are expendable. You can sort of just do away. Often, not always, but
But in this case, yes,
definitely. You can just say what's ribadisco, right?
Okay.
That would be
Ribadisco,
perfectly acceptable.
sottolineo la proposta del Pakistan per un rinnovato paradigma per il controllo degli armamenti, lontano dalla corsa agli armamenti, lontano e verso restrizioni a livello globale e regionale. We have this arm races, it's corsa agli armamenti, which cannot be changed, I think.
Yeah, for some reason, and she keeps talking about arms races. I mean, usually we just talk about arms race, but I don't think it makes a big difference. It's plural, but I don't think it makes a big difference here.
In Italian too. Corse agli armamenti, no, la corsa, it's general. You just say la corsa. A prerequisite for such a direction is to restore trust both inside and outside this conference. Un prerequisito per seguire questa direzione è quello di ristabilire fiducia sia all'interno che all'esterno di questa conferenza. So, yeah, here you just stick to the English.
Yeah.
Commencing
Could you say okay, trust, fiducia. Could you say, do you have like confianza? Fiducia. Yeah, confianza. Often they talk, I mean, again, in Spanish and French, they talk about confiance, confianza.
We don't have it. Confidenza, we have it, but confidenza is, okay, if you know somebody and you are acquainted with the person, you have confidenza.
Okay, a confidant, someone you confide in. Okay, I get you. So the usual word in Italian is fiducia.
Trust him, and so maybe you reveal secrets, and for example, okay, so confidenza.
Okay.
In that sense, commencing negotiations on an international instrument on negative security assurances can help transform the global security environment, revive trust, and serve as a solid gateway to nuclear disarmament. So, avviare negoziazioni, commencing, avviare.
In the CD, they're always about commencing negotiations, by the way. Very high, commencing. It's always commencing. They rarely talk about starting negotiations. For some reason, they always talk about commencing. So that just, if you really want to impress, if you're going into English and you really want to impress, you can commence negotiations.
We can also say aprire negoziazioni, aprire negoziati. Aprire negoziati means start. Avviare, iniziare, cominciare. Su uno strumento internazionale sulle garanzie negative di sicurezza.
NSAs, right?
Può aiutare a trasformare l'ambiente di sicurezza a livello globale. You can just drop sicurezza globale. You can just drop a level of ravvivare la fiducia e servire da accesso sicuro al disarmo nucleare. Solid gateway.
Yeah, access. Yeah, that's a weird solid gateway, right?
Yeah, it's a bit weird, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Or not, yeah.
No, but I like what you've done with it. I mean, yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Servire d'accesso sicuro. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
A
ravvivare
door. What do you say? Like a port, like a puerta, port. Yeah.
una porta, sì, una porta sicura. Sono un accesso più che porta, un accesso sicuro
No, I
a
think that sounds good. Yeah.
un'entrata sicura.
Exactly. That's what it is. Yeah.
Al disarmo nucleare. In these endeavors, per questi temi, il Pakistan, you will find Pakistan a willing and constructive partner. So, il Pakistan sarà un partner disponibile e costruttivo.
But in these endeavors, could you say something like in estes forci, estes?
Yeah, I put temi, but it could be sforzi,
Right.
in questo impegno.
Impegno, right.
Impegno. Yeah, yeah, per questa, sì, per questo compito, task,
Okay, okay.
for example. And I thank you for your time. Grazie per il vostro tempo. Grazie.
Well, thank you for your time as well, Sara. I know Sara she's a very busy lady. I know she's got to go, but she stayed right to the end to finish the episode with us.
I wanted to finish.
And what did you think of that very quickly, Sara? I know you've got to go, but so anything to say about any sort of impressions from that text?
Impressions, okay. I mean, it's more an advice, of course. Translation is very different from interpreting. So this was the translated version. Of course, when interpreting, you have to drop things, words, and maybe rearrange a little bit sentences. So it's just a guideline, okay, just some tips for especially interpreters in this case. So yeah, but other things to say on this, not particularly.
This is a very standard. It's a very standard sort of speech statement given, like in the conference disarmament. This does contain, you know, coming from English, a lot of the standard boilerplate language, as I say. So it's a good one to practice. It gives you a good sort of introduction. If you're not familiar with the conference disarmament, haven't done it before, this is a good typical. You know, uses a lot of the typical jargon that is used there. Okay, well, thank you very much, I say, to Sara for joining us for this episode. Hopefully she might find time to make a few more. You never know.
Yeah, I want to, of course. Okay, we will do that.
You've got Sara, as I said, so Sara talked about her website before at the start. Go and visit that. I'm going to put the link to this, as I say, to the text in the description box. Go and look at the other episodes that me and Sara have done in the past as well. Any final words from you, Sara?
Thank you very much, Roland. Thanks a lot.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Which leaves, well, all that remains to be said then is to take up my axe and my cheese board and say that episode 181 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the Interpretation Station. We hope you enjoyed your visit. Until next time, folks.